Hello everyone. It's been asked what I do for a living, and I get to work with future teachers of young children. I'm a college professor and specifically for child development. And when I ask students what they want for their children, whether they've given birth to them or whether they are in their classrooms, it is often they say they want them to be independent, to be able to be on their own, but also to feel good about themselves and to contribute to society. And to get there, for us to have that, I think those are very meaningful goals for our children. And to get there, it's not just going to happen on its own. It has to be, you'll know you're successful when you have a kid who's willing to try out for the football team when he is not the most coordinated, or somebody who's worked extra hard to prepare for a paper. These are our older kids, but when you have younger kids, they're more in tune to trying things. They haven't had that jolt in their self-esteem yet, and we're going to be getting to that when I do a series on discipline and classroom management. But what I want to know is what exactly we do to have kids that are going to grow up to feel good about themselves and to be independent. That means be able to make decisions for themselves and not fall for peer pressure all the time, and not to and live a life that's authentic, that they were created to lead. Unconditional love is a must for everybody. And if you were somebody who played football and you feel that the only way for your child to be successful if they play football, or if they were a cheerleader like you or in pageants or whatever, then you're missing the point that they come through us and not from us. They're their own unique individual, and they're going to have interests that are different than yours. And that's really okay. You are busy being you, and you're allowing the other person to be who they are. And loving a child unconditionally is just fundamental. And if it's not there, then it's going to be a lost cause. And they know if you're authentic or not. Just love the child for who they are. Being patient with their development is important. There's many areas of development, psychological and emotional, are often ignored, but the physical is more obvious in the academia. It's often that boys are closer to the age of 8 before they're comfortable with written language, and that's the reading and writing. And sometimes the immaturity in a little girl might be more evident until a little bit later. It's okay to be a late bloomer. Be patient. Most kids are going to be just fine if you just let them, if you just keep nurturing them and giving them a structured life, then they are going to be just fine. We used to have children out of need back when farms were the typical norm, the rural community. The 3-year-old not gathering eggs meant that there was no breakfast that day. We no longer have children out of need, but out of want. And that's a lovely thing in and of itself, except that we still have this need to be needed. And so we can't exactly have them take over all the household chores, but we can set them up to be successful. And that means that you find what they're good at. I had a son who was not, his eye-hand coordination wasn't the best. So for me to put him on a basketball team, now to develop that, if that's something he wanted to do, I would have supported that. But watching him, I felt Taekwondo or martial arts were a better avenue. It was an individual sport. He could go at his own pace, which was somewhat slower initially, but he ended up being a 3rd-degree black belt. So he has this great accomplishment that he can feel good about. And I think that's important. You set them up to succeed. So that's looking at what their strengths and weaknesses are and making a decision with the child. But them being successful leads to more success. There is a self-fulfilling prophecy that is absolutely true. You tell a child she's clumsy enough, and I promise she's going to fall down on the stairs every opportunity she gets, or that she's not any good at math. Same thing in the other direction. If you applaud their sincere efforts and what they're doing well, you're going to get a different response. And I don't think it's our point to judge and decide this child is good at that or this is not. Just be mindful if they are doing something that's positive, point that out to them. That most hyper child that's sitting down for that 2 minutes reading a book, that's a great time to say, I like the way you're reading that book. Or I like the way you're making the effort, or I like the way the numbers are staying up and down, or you're keeping it the correct number in the ones place. You're being specific and you're telling what they do well. That is going to lead to somebody more successful. Encouragement, which is simply that, being mindful of what is positive and simply stating that. A kid cannot hear enough on how loved they are, but just saying, oh, you're so wonderful, you're so cute, you're so beautiful. What did they do to be wonderful or beautiful or cute? And you want to point that out. Is it when they come in, they light up the room with their bright smile? That's what you want to point out. because that's something that they have control over. But encouragement is being very specific, so it's more difficult. You have to actually pay attention. But if you say something through your senses, something you see, I see you like the color green today, or something that you hear them say, I heard you compliment that person, I thought that was really nice of you, or I saw you help pick up the toys, I really appreciate that. And I think that's important, and that's very encouraging, and that we will lead to a child doing more. I mean, anybody who feels badly are not going to do better by making them feel worse. It's pointing out what they do well that encourages them to want to continue that behavior. You want to celebrate the positive, what you like about your child, make a list and let them know what it is. This is whether they're in a classroom or at home. There's nothing wrong with that. And even if they're too young to read, there's nothing wrong with having it posted and you reading it to them. It's a good reminder for us. And again, the more detailed you are, the better it is. And also you celebrate chaining, not just the actual event. If a child is learning to tie a shoe, you don't want to wait till he actually knows how to tie a shoe before you say, yay, you did it. But maybe he learned to crisscross the shoelaces. Well, that's something that you want to point out and recognize. The words I love you, I told you, are not as important as I need you, but yet they are important. So telling a child you love them is essential, but please don't put the word but after it. I love you, but you didn't clean your room. I love you, but you still need to finish your paper. Whatever it is, just that I love you. Let it be the message. Let it be the positive, because they're going to only remember the negative if you add it to the negative. So you might as well not even tell them you love them, because it just makes it worse. And they'll expect, oh, I love you. Okay, now something's coming. Let it be a genuine I love you, and let it be just that. There's a magic of teaching, which is actually taking the time to show the child what it is you want them to do. If they're in your classroom and they're going to paint a picture and they're going to use the 3 primary colors, and you have the yellow brush, then you show them the yellow brush will only go in the yellow paint, the red brush will only go in the red paint, and the blue brush will only go in the blue paint. And that way, when they return it, they won't accidentally get it in the yellow or the red. They'll know exactly what to do to be successful, so that others that come after them to paint won't just have the color brown to deal with, so that they can do their own primary colors. So you set them up for success by actually teach them what it is you want them to do. And I've said this in another video, and I will say it again. I will say it in every video if I need to. If you just point out what they do wrong, they're going to just know what not to do. But if they don't know what to do instead, then it's all in vain. You have to show them what it is you want them to do that's successful. And maybe it's, how do you want them to sit in the circle? How do they show you that they're listening? Is it their legs crossed, their hands on their knees, and then moving their knees up and down? They can move their whole body without tripping anybody, without disturbing anybody. And that way they get their needs met, and their hands don't get stepped on, and they don't trip anybody, and it's a win-win. But that's specific instruction to tell them and show them and how to sit and listen in a circle time. So I hope that makes sense. And then to remember having faith in your children. It's going to be okay. Laughter is always the best medicine. Always take time for a hug, and know that we're going to make mistakes, but those are wonderful opportunities to learn. I had the most amazing mother. I don't remember her being perfect, and I'm sure we can nitpick all day about what our mommies have done or whatever, but she genuinely loved me, and she took the time to tell me, and she would point out what I do right, and that really does absolve so much. And most importantly, when she made a mistake, she would just say, I'm sorry, or I did not mean for that to hurt your feelings. And that meant the world to me. And kids are quick to forgive. And I think we don't need to hide behind, like, I'm the authority and I make no mistakes. I think there's a human side that helps children become more positive and more independent when they see it's okay that we make mistakes. And we simply say, I'm sorry, and we carry on. So just know that mistakes are wonderful opportunities to learn. Go out there, love your child, be nice to yourself, and the world is going to be a better place. Thanks.